You're on Ebro Africa News. My name is Rina Shuvesi. In the headlines. Kenya's shopping mall under siege. At least 68 killed, scores injured in Westgate shopping mall attack.
William Samuel Ruto, you have been charged in
Ruto's ICC trial. Judges allow Kenya Deputy President William Ruto to leave The Hague over Nairobi shopping mall attack. Nigeria killings. Death toll in northeastern Nigeria rises to 142 as soldiers battle insurgent group. And in sports, Kenya's rugby sevens team Shujaa wins Safaricom Sevens title. We begin this bulletin in Kenya's capital, Nairobi, on the situation at the Westgate shopping mall, which has been under attack since Saturday. Kenyan troops backed by Israeli agents continue rescue efforts in a bid to end the siege in the upmarket shopping mall and free hostages held by Somali militants in an attack that has left at least 62 people dead and over 180 injured.
In front of the nearby hospital, survivors tell their story to the press.
And those gangsters shoot all the people who are just seeing. First of all, they just spoken by saying, we are the Al-Shabaab militia. Yeah? The government of Kenya have sent their soldiers to kill our people. So we're just coming back to revenge to those what happened to their countries.
Sporadic gunfire rang out as Kenyan security officials said they were trying to kill or capture the remaining attackers and end the 28-hour-long bloodbath at the Westgate Mall.
At 5 p.m., the soldiers entered inside. At 5 p.m., so the soldiers entered inside, and they're just shooting randomly there. Yeah, they're just shooting randomly. And then I had the number of the manager. I called him and we informed him that we are at this particular point. So if the soldiers are coming in, they have to recognize we are the staffs, but we are not the gangsters.
Those that were injured received medical attention in different hospitals around the city.
Yesterday we had admitted 40 patients out of the 126 that we saw. At this point in time, we still have about 28 patients who are still admitted in the hospital. About 8 of them are scheduled to go for surgery to remove the bullets and shrapnel wounds. The rest of them, we are treating them, and we're hoping that in the next 2-3 days' time, we will be able to start discharging them.
Somalia's Al-Qaeda-inspired Shabaab rebels said the carnage at the part Israel-owned complex was in retaliation for Kenya's military intervention in Somalia, where African Union troops are battling the rebels. The attack, the worst in Nairobi since an Al-Qaeda bombing at the U.S. Embassy killed more than 200 people in 1998, was condemned by world powers and the United Nations. After a day and night of sometimes ferocious gun battles, security sources said police and soldiers had finally pinned down the gunmen. Israeli interests in Kenya have come under attack before. In November 2002, there were 2 simultaneous attacks in the Mombasa area. A missile targeted an Israeli charter flight as it took off from the port city's airport, but it missed. At the same time, a car packed with explosives smashed into the Paradise Hotel, the only Israeli-owned hotel in the Mombasa area, as Israeli tourists were checking in. 10 Kenyans and 3 Israelis died. The Red Cross has been greatly instrumental in the rescue and medical assistance during this dark time, with many Kenyans donating blood for those injured. Kenyans have also rallied together across the country to contribute money that will be geared towards the much-needed medical attention for the victims. Many friendly countries have pledged their support for Kenya during this time.
For your own safety, one person to come, one person to come.
And as the rescue mission continued minutes after 1 p.m. East African time, smoke was seen billowing from the building under attack. Ebru Africa's Agnes Gakunga is at the scene and brings us the latest.
At exactly 1:15 East African time, heavy gunfire and loud explosives were heard coming from the mall, which is under siege. The security officers which are carrying out the operation, being led by the Kenya Defence Forces, were seen taking their positions. Their main target, to rescue all the hostages. It is the third day since Westgate Shopping Mall was attacked by gunmen. The Al-Qaeda-linked group, the Al-Shabaab, on Saturday claimed responsible for the attack. It is an attack that is closely being monitored both locally and internationally. Both local and international media is closely following each and every event related to the attack.
Yes. You are Jehovah Jireh. Yes. You are the mighty God. Yes.
Earlier today, preachers from Kenya arrived at the scene of crime, singing the national anthem, and their prayer is for all the hostages to be released alive.
This act of terrorism was carried out by a group that does not value lives and did not consider sparing the lives of even helpless women and children. We take this opportunity to condemn this terror act and all those who executed it. We pledge our commitment to identify with the plight of the victims of this tragedy, and we plan to mobilize and have already mobilized both material and financial support.
Since Kenya sent its officers in Somalia in June 2011 to flush out the Al-Shabaab terror group, it has witnessed several attacks in its coastal town of Mombasa, here in the capital Nairobi, and in Garissa. For now, the rescue operation continues. It is the third day since the rescue operation kicked off here at Westgate Shopping Mall, and the security officers are doing all they can to rescue all the hostages. And as you can see behind me, the smoke is a clear indication that the situation is getting worse each and every minute. Agnes Gakunga, Ebru Africa News, Nairobi, outside Westgate Shopping Mall.
Now, the International Criminal Court has allowed Kenya Deputy President William Ruto to leave The Hague, Netherlands, to attend to the Nairobi Westgate Shopping Mall tragedy. The judges granted Ruto his request, ruling that the trial will proceed in his absence.
William Samuel Ruto.
Deputy President William Ruto has been granted 1 week to attend deadly military attack on Nairobi's shopping mall. On Sunday, Ruto's defense team filed an urgent request to have the trial chamber adjourn the trial proceedings in order that Ruto can return to Kenya to deal with an ongoing and extremely serious matter of national security. In his ruling, Judge Chile Ebo Osuji said, in light of the circumstances and the views heard during the hearing, the chamber excuses Ruto from the proceedings. For the moment, the excusal is permitted for 1 week only, subject to any further requests that Defense Counsel may make if it needs to be extended.
Honorable action for the prosecutor to do.
Chief Prosecutor Fatou Bensouda has, however, filed an appeal to overturn the ruling.
Mr. President.
The Deputy President is facing charges of crime against humanity alongside former radio journalist Joshua Sang.
Not guilty, Your Honor.
In count 5,
Joshua Arab Sang.
Away from that, Sudanese President Omar al-Bashir, wanted by the International Criminal Court on genocide charges, said on Sunday that he planned to attend the week's UN General Assembly and had already booked his stay in New York.
Washington has led calls for Bashir to face international justice over bloodshed in the now decade-old conflict in Sudan's Darfur region, and a senior State Department official said last week that Bashir would not receive a warm welcome if he traveled to New York. Bashir said he was not worried that U.S. authorities would arrest him as demanded by human rights groups because Washington is not a member of the ICC.
Attending the UN Assembly is our right. This is our right, and we will travel to United States, and nobody can question any of us, because there is no law in the United States that grants anybody the authority to take any action against me, because the US is not a member of the ICC.
A State Department official speaking on condition of anonymity said the department had received a visa application from Bashir. The official, however, offered no comment on whether a visa had been issued. The ICC issued arrest warrants for Bashir in 2009 and 2010 on charges of orchestrating war crimes and genocide, requiring member countries to detain him if he entered their territories. Since then, he has limited his travel mostly to African neighbors and Arab allies. The United States is not a member of the Hague-based ICC, so would not be legally bound to hand the president over, but it has transferred ICC suspects to the court before. When Congolese warlord Bosco Ntaganda turned himself into the U.S. Embassy in the Rwandan capital of Kigali in March, he was put on a plane to The Hague within days.
The death toll from an attack in the northeastern Nigeria that saw insurgents dressed as soldiers set up checkpoints and gun down travelers on a highway has risen to 142.
The previous death toll from the attack in Benshek area was at 7. The insurgents suspected to be members of Boko Haram also burned scores of homes and buildings in their assault and left corpses littering the roadside. The motivation behind the assault was not immediately clear, but Boko Haram members have repeatedly carried out revenge attacks against the residents over the emergence of vigilante groups that have formed to assist the military. In mid-May, Nigeria declared a state of emergency across the northeast, Boko Haram's stronghold, and launched a sweeping offensive aimed at crushing the group's 4-year insurgency. While the military has claimed major successes in the campaign, the attacks may have simply shifted from cities to more remote areas. Northeastern Nigeria has seen an outburst of violence in recent days, leaving scores of people dead and casting doubt over the effectiveness of the military.
Thousands of people have held demonstrations in the Moroccan capital Rabat against a recent decision by the government to increase fuel prices.
Demonstrators took to the streets on Sunday after a call by the General Union of Moroccan Workers as Morocco's transport sector threatens a 72-hour general strike in protest against the government move. Petrol prices jumped after the government implemented new measures to cut a budget deficit and reduce fuel subsidies, which weigh heavily on the national budget. Under the government's new indexation system, the price of diesel increased by 8.4% to 0.79 euros per litre, while petrol price jumped 4.8% to reach 1.14 euros a litre. Morocco's opposition parties, led by the Istiqlal Party, have censured the government for what they call making life harder for citizens during an already difficult economic period. Morocco imports almost all its energy needs. Oil price fluctuations have drastically affected the country's ailing economy. The government decision has angered many ordinary Moroccans already grappling with high costs of living.
A statue of former South African President and anti-apartheid leader Nelson Mandela was unveiled in Washington on Saturday. The statue is located outside the South African Embassy, the site where thousands of protesters demanded the end to apartheid and Mandela's release from prison during the 1980s.
The statue is a replica of one that stands outside the Drakenstein Correctional Facility, formerly Victor Verster Prison, where Mandela spent his final years in prison. The Nobel Peace Prize laureate's latest hospitalization in June had attracted a wave of attention and sympathy at home and across the world. His daughter Zinzi Mandela said during Saturday's ceremony her father was a fighter.
I know that everybody just worries about, how he truly is, what is propaganda, what is being hidden from you all. That this man is a fighter, as you can see from that raised fist over there. He's not going anywhere anytime soon. He's determined to be with us. And that is something that we cannot predict. It's a relationship between him and his maker.
They all have in common.
Ibrahim Rasoon, South Africa's ambassador to the United States, said the placement of the new Mandela statue in Washington is a gift of thanks to the American people.
We thought that there was no better tribute to the people of the United States than bringing Mr. Mandela's first step out of Victor Verster prison after 27 years and placing that first step right here on American soil. So that's the great day. We come to reopen the building and we come to unveil the statue of Nelson Mandela and to pay tribute not only to Mandela but to all the millions of Americans who sacrificed for us.
For more than a decade, Mandela has been out of politics, dividing his time in retirement between his home in Houghton and Kunu, the village in the impoverished Eastern Cape province where he was born. The anti-apartheid leader was elected South Africa's first black president in multiracial elections in 1994 that ended white minority rule. Mandela's imprisonment included 18 years on the notorious Robben Island penal colony when he and other prisoners were forced to work in a limestone quarry, and he first suffered the lung infections that were to dog him for years.
Moving on, Ethiopian opposition activists on Sunday demanded the release of journalists and political prisoners locked up under anti-terror legislation in demonstrations in two major towns.
In rare public outpours of anger, people marched peacefully in the towns of Gondar and Dessie, chanting freedom and carrying pictures of jailed politicians and journalists.
It's freedom, it's symbolic, so we'll move forward, whatever small it may be. Everywhere in the world, changes comes from a few people. It's not a major change of the crowd. What matters is the determined, courageous handful of people can make and can bring change, no matter how it may be small.
The demonstrations follow a rally last month in the capital Addis Ababa when several thousand activists demanded the government adhere to basic human rights. The recent rallies are the largest since post-election violence in 2005 resulted in 200 people being killed and 30,000 arrested.
A time bomb. There are so many problems which need to be solved within this short period of time. Unless the government has the political determination and the political will to solve these problems, our country is in trouble. That's why we are protesting regularly.
The government has dismissed the protesters' calls. Protesters have said they will continue to demonstrate until the government addresses their grievances. Journalists, opposition members and religious leaders have been jailed under Ethiopia's 2009 anti-terrorism legislation, which rights groups say is used by the government to stifle peaceful dissent.
United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon met with leaders of Mexico, Namibia, Malawi and the Southern African Development Community ahead of the General Assembly General Debate.
The United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon also met with the Minister for Foreign Affairs of Mexico, Jose Antonio Mier ahead of the start of the General Assembly's debate. Ban also met with President of Malawi, Joyce Hilda Mutulabande, President of Namibia, Hifikepunye Pohambe, and Southern Africa Development Community representatives. World leaders are gathering for the 68th session of the United Nations General Assembly to discuss pressing global issues. The Assembly's general debate will open on Tuesday, September 24th and run through Tuesday, the October 1st.
Now, one of the year's most powerful storms, Typhoon Usagi, swept past Hong Kong on Monday, uprooting trees and cancelling hundreds of flights. 17 people sought medical treatment as 8 of these were admitted to hospitals.
Typhoon Usagi was classified as a severe typhoon and has sustained winds of 175 kilometers per hour with gusts of up to 213 kilometers per hour on Sunday evening. The powerful typhoon slammed into southern China late Sunday night, killing 25 people. The total death toll in Asia from the storm has reached at least 33 people. More than 250 incoming and outgoing flights were cancelled in Hong Kong and an additional 200 were delayed. Severe Typhoon Usagi killed at least 3 people and into southern China Sunday, shutting down one of the world's busiest seaports in nearby Hong Kong and throwing flight schedules into disarray. Usagi had previously killed 2 people in the Philippines and unleashed landslides and power outages across southern Taiwan as it plowed through the Luzon Strait with ferocious winds and torrential downpours. Authorities in the southern Chinese city said it was likely to bring severe disruption with transport systems affected and expectations of high waves and flooding in low-lying areas. The region is regularly pummeled by tropical storms. Typhoon Bopha left a trail of destruction in the southern Philippines last year, triggering floods and landslides that left more than 1,800 dead and missing and displaced nearly 1 million people.
Syrian President Bashar al-Assad explained his position on the current chemical weapon issue in Damascus Monday in an interview with the CCTV.
مرحبا وتحياتي السيد الرئيس. شكرا جزيلا لموافقتكم على.
Talking about whether Syria will accomplish the task according to the Chemical Weapons Convention set by the US and Russia, Assad said he has the confidence in completing the task except concerns about the interruptions from some terrorist groups.
بالنسبة للحكومة السورية
For the Syrian government, we need to do 2 things. First, we need to submit necessary files and data to the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, which we have been doing for the past few days, for the reasons that the files are ready made and available.
بحسب الاتفاقية الدولية.
On the amount of chemical weapons that Syria holds, Assad said it's not surprise for Syria to keep large amount.
الأمر الآخر هو تأمين وصول.
Syria has built those chemical weapons since decades ago. It's no surprise they are large in amount. We are a country in a state of war, with some land being occupied for more than 40 years. But no matter what, the Syrian army is basically prepared to fight with regular weapons.
When asked about the impact of Syria's current situation on the process of destroying chemical weapons, he said it should not be a problem.
It should not be a problem in principle, but as I said, if some countries give orders to those terrorists to stop experts' arrival and accuse the Syrian government of doing it, then the answer will be different. You know, terrorists can move from one place to another rather than stay in a certain area, but this is all possibility. We can only find out after the experts arrive in Syria.
When talking about how to prevent chemical weapons from falling into the hands of the opposition, Assad said the chemical weapons are in complete control under the Syrian army.
Now, against the backdrop of the horrific terrorist attack at the Westgate Mall that has plunged the country into mourning, the national rugby sevens team, Shujaa, gallantly reclaimed the Safaricom Sevens title yesterday. They won 47 over Australia Renegades. Hesbon Mugambi has more.
The annual Safaricom Sevens is Africa's premier rugby festival. This year's tournament bore the scars of the horrible terrorist attack when invited international side England Royals took the first flight out of Kenya on security grounds.
The terrorist attack was a very, very unfortunate happening to Kenya, and especially to our competition. But those are things that are beyond our control. But for us, as Kenya Rugby Union, we never left anything to chance, and we never leave anything to chance.
The Kenya Rugby chairman promised his union will do more to promote peace and solidarity between Kenyan and Somali youth.
We are going to negotiate with people like UNICEF. They can bring a team from Somalia so that they can see the fruits of peace and what peace means to the world. Because this world needs peace.
A blood donation center was set at the Moi International Sports Center, Kasarani, to assist the victims of Saturday's terrorist attack at the Westgate Mall in Nairobi. In a brave move and bold statement to potential terrorists, the games went on.
We were contemplating of calling off the competition, but if we did, it means the terrorists win. And this is the youth of Kenya. These are the youth of Africa. This is the youth of the world. They come together for camaraderie, bonding, brotherhood, and we should not kill that, because that's what will give us peace at the end of the day.
The tournament observed a moment of silence in honor of the victims of the Westgate Mall attack before Kenyan side Shujaa took on Australia Renegades.
In honor of our fellow Kenyans at the Westgate strategy.
Shujaa reclaimed the title with an emphatic 40-7 win to give the dampened crowd something to cheer amid the gloom that hangs over our nation. Kenya's second-string side, Morans, finished fourth after losing 12-7 to Western Province of South Africa. In the ball competition, Western Bulls lost to Grenoble 12-10 in a tight final.
It's so good to get this final. And Belgium also is a very good team, so we are very proud about this victory.
In the Shield competition, Uganda proved too strong for Homeboys, whom they beat 33-0 in a one-sided affair. Kenya has been using the tournament to showcase her ambition to host one of IRB games.
Safari 7, I know it's a great competition, great international competition, and also for Kenya 7 it's like a culture.
One of these days we make sure that we host an IRB circuit in Kenya.
Yeah, I think we're getting there. It's all short steps. It's a long shot, but this has been a good tournament. We've seen the crowds coming out.
The Kenya Rugby Sevens team has been a source of pride and joy to the country following their remarkable performance in IRB 7 circuit games in recent years.
And that's it on Ebru Africa today. Thank you for your valid company. I'm Rina Shivesi.